In a village surrounded by golden fields and soft whispering trees, there lived a girl named Abigail. She was so stunning that wherever she walked, people couldn't help but stare. Her skin radiated like the early morning sun, her smile twinkled like stars, and her laughter was a melody that lifted the spirits of all who heard it. Abigail had two best friends, Gloria and Esther. They were inseparable, sharing everything, laughter, meals, and secrets. To Abigail, they weren't just friends, they were like sisters. However, there was one person who was not as trusting of them, her mother. "Abigail, my dear," her mother would warn her with concern, "be careful. Not everyone who smiles at you is your friend. These girls, Gloria and Esther, their hearts are not as pure as they seem." Abigail would chuckle, brushing off her mother's concerns. "Mama, you're just overthinking. Gloria and Esther are my best friends. You don't have to like them, but I do." Her mother would sigh, knowing she could not change her daughter's mind. But a nagging feeling of unease never left her heart. One evening, as the three girls sat under the shade of a large mango tree, enjoying roasted corn and chatting, Gloria spoke with a sly smile. "Abigail, don't you think you're lucky? You're the most admired girl in this village." "Yes," Esther chimed in. "They say you're the most beautiful girl they've ever seen. Even men from the city would want to marry you." Abigail blushed and shyly responded, "It's just beauty. It's not everything." But deep inside, she loved the attention, and her friends always reminded her of how extraordinary she was. Gloria leaned in closer. "Abigail, have you ever thought about using your beauty for something bigger? If you married a rich man or became famous, you wouldn't have to live in this small town forever." Abigail frowned. "I love my life here, just as it is." Esther clicked her tongue. "But don't you want more?" "We all want more, and together, we can make it happen." Abigail's unease grew, but she pushed the thought aside, forcing a smile. "We already have everything we need. Let's just enjoy our friendship." That night, as Abigail lay in bed, her mother's warning echoed in her mind. "Not everyone who smiles at you is your friend." Something felt off, but she tried to ignore it. After all, these were her best friends. What could go wrong? A week later, excitement spread through the village as the town criers announced that the prince was returning from his studies abroad. He was coming back to choose a wife, and only a pure, untouched maiden would be considered. The news spread like wildfire. Mothers hurried to ask their daughters about their purity, worried their chance to marry into royalty might slip away. "Are you still pure, my child?" one mother would ask. Some daughters lowered their heads in embarrassment, while others were scolded for not holding on to their virginity. Abigail, however, had nothing to fear. She was pure. Her mother, upon hearing the news, turned to her. "Abigail, my child," she said, holding her hands. "The gods have kept you pure for a reason. This is your chance, but you must be careful. Not everyone will be happy for you." Abigail smiled, her heart fluttering with excitement. "Mama, don't worry. If it's meant to be, it will happen." The next day, the village was abuzz. The prince had arrived, stepping out of his carriage in royal robes, tall and handsome. His eyes scanned the crowd, and when they landed on Abigail, his heart skipped a beat. She was the one. She was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. He turned to his father, the king, and whispered, "She is the one." Abigail was tested, and it was confirmed that she was pure. That evening, the town crier announced, "Hear ye, the prince has chosen his bride. Prince Obi has chosen Abigail, for her beauty, kindness, and purity." The villagers cheered, and Abigail's mother cried tears of joy, thanking the gods for their blessing. But not everyone was pleased. Gloria and Esther stood at the back of the crowd, their faces dark with jealousy. Esther hissed, "Abigail is so lucky. She's pure, and now she'll become a princess." Gloria clenched her fists. I won't let that happen. She has everything, beauty, respect, and now a prince to marry. No. We have to do something. How can we stop it? Esther asked, her voice trembling with frustration. Gloria smiled darkly. We don't need to change the truth. We just need to change what people believe. If the villagers think Abigail is not pure, the prince will never choose her. Esther's eyes widened. You want to spread a rumor? Exactly, Gloria said with confidence. We'll spread a lie about Abigail, and by the time anyone realizes the truth, it will be too late. The next day, Gloria and Esther approached Abigail's house. Abigail, Esther began, feigning excitement, we have something to tell you, but you must promise not to tell anyone. Abigail stopped sweeping and looked at them with curiosity. What is it? Gloria leaned in. We both have boyfriends, she whispered. Abigail's eyes widened. What? But how? You've never told me. Esther giggled. We kept it a secret. But it's so nice, Abigail. You should try it. Abigail shook her head. No, I don't want a boyfriend. I want to remain pure until I marry. Gloria rolled her eyes. Come on, Abigail. You're too strict. Mike has been eyeing you for months. You should give him a chance. Abigail's face hardened. Never. I will wait for my husband. Gloria smirked. Suit yourself. We were just trying to help. With that, they left, disappointed. That evening, Abigail's mother warned her again. Don't go anywhere with Gloria or Esther. Stay close, my child. Abigail smiled and nodded. Mama, I'm fine. I won't go far. But soon after, Gloria and Esther came to the house and persuaded her to join them for a swim at the river. Though Abigail hesitated, remembering her mother's warning, Gloria and Esther insisted. Don't be silly, Abigail, Gloria said. We won't be long. You can tell your mother later. Reluctantly, Abigail agreed, and they left together. But as they walked, the path grew darker, and Abigail felt an odd sense of unease. This isn't the usual way to the river, she said, stopping in her tracks. Gloria clicked her tongue. Don't be foolish. Let's keep going. As they reached the river, Abigail noticed the water's beauty but also felt something was wrong. Gloria and Esther insisted she swim, but Abigail refused. No, I'll wait on the shore, she said. Suddenly, in a fit of anger, Gloria shoved Abigail into the river. Abigail screamed as she fell into the water. The river swirled around her, and before anyone could react, Abigail vanished beneath the surface. Seconds later, a golden fish emerged, its eyes filled with sadness and confusion. Gloria and Esther stared in shock before bursting into laughter. Now she's just a fish, Esther sneered. Meanwhile, Abigail's mother, still in the village, heard a strange bird singing, a haunting tune that seemed to carry a warning. Her heart raced, and she ran to the river, only to find her daughter's fate. Kneeling beside the water, her mother wept uncontrollably, realizing what had happened. My daughter, she sobbed. And so, the river claimed its prize, leaving Abigail's mother heartbroken. The laughter of Gloria and Esther faded as the village remained silent, while Abigail, transformed into a golden fish, swam sadly in the depths of the river. The village was consumed with rumors. Abigail, the beloved girl who had captivated the heart of Prince Obi, had mysteriously vanished. Her absence caused a stir among the villagers, and some of the women, secretly relieved, spoke among themselves with sly smiles. Gloria and Esther, once close companions of Abigail, pretended to grieve her disappearance, but deep down, they celebrated the unfolding of their wicked plan. As the search for Abigail grew more frantic, Gloria saw her chance. The prince was heartbroken and surrounded by worry. With Abigail out of the picture, someone had to take her place as his bride, and Gloria was determined it would be her. She dressed in her finest, rubbed oil into her skin to make it glow, and tied her beads carefully around her neck. With her most charming smile, she marched toward the palace. When Gloria arrived, she found Prince Obi sitting alone in the royal courtyard, the weight of grief evident on his face. She curtsied gracefully, "My prince, I know your heart is heavy, but you do not have to mourn forever. Abigail may be lost to us, but perhaps she was never meant to be your bride." Prince Obi barely glanced up. "I do not want to talk right now," he muttered, his voice thick with sadness. Gloria took a step closer, her voice soft and coaxing. "But my prince, I have important news. It is about Abigail." The prince's eyes flickered with interest. "What is it?" Gloria leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "I did not want to say this before, but I believe you should know the truth. Abigail was not as innocent as everyone thought. She has run away with another man. She was never truly the right woman for you." Prince Obi stood up, a flash of anger crossing his face. "What are you saying?" Gloria pressed on. The so-called test of her purity was all a lie. She paid people to make it seem as though she was untouched, but in truth, she was secretly involved with someone. Now, she has run away with him, leaving you heartbroken. The prince's eyes narrowed, his anger rising. "Do you think I am a fool?" Gloria quickly tried to backpedal. "My prince, I only wanted to protect you, enough." Prince Obi roared. "You speak of things you do not understand." He glared at her, his tone icy. "You are nothing but a liar and a deceiver. I want you out of my sight. Now." Shocked and humiliated, Gloria's confidence shattered. She tried to protest, but the prince's cold stare silenced her. With a bow of her head, she turned and hurried out of the palace, her heart pounding with anger and defeat. As she walked away, the prince's words echoed in her mind. "I see through your lies." She vowed to herself that she would not give up. This was just a setback, there was always a way to get what she wanted. Meanwhile, back at the palace, the elders and guards whispered amongst themselves. They suspected something was off, but without proof, they were unable to act. The prince's determination, however, was unwavering. He ordered the search to continue, sending warriors far and wide to find Abigail, convinced she was still alive. He could feel it in his heart. That night, as he stood by his window, gazing at the star-filled sky, his thoughts were consumed by Abigail. "Where are you, my love?" he whispered, his voice filled with longing. In the deep waters of the forbidden river, a golden fish swam silently, its eyes reflecting sorrow. It was Abigail, now trapped in the form of a fish, unable to escape the river's depths. Far from the palace, Esther, another of Abigail's so-called friends, began to feel the weight of guilt bearing down on her. She had been plagued by nightmares, dreams where Abigail's human eyes stared at her from the river, full of sadness and accusation. Night after night, Esther woke in terror, drenched in sweat. The guilt gnawed at her, and she could no longer bear the thought of what they had done. One evening, she ran to Gloria in a panic. "Gloria, I can't take it anymore. Every night I see Abigail, trapped in the river. She's a fish, but she still has her human eyes. She knows what we did. I feel like I'm losing my mind. I need to confess." Gloria's face darkened with anger. "Confess? Are you out of your mind? We did nothing wrong. You need to forget about it, or it will destroy us. If anyone finds out, we're finished." Esther's hands trembled as she spoke. "But I can't sleep. I'm terrified every night. I can't escape her eyes. What have we done?" Gloria sighed heavily. She reached into her pouch and pulled out a small bag of dark powder. "Take this. Rub it on your face before you sleep. It will calm your mind and stop the nightmares." Esther hesitated but, desperate for relief, she took the powder. That night, she applied it as Gloria had instructed and finally managed to fall into a restless sleep. But by morning, Esther was dead. Her lifeless body lay on her mat, and her family screamed in horror. The village was thrown into chaos. Whispers spread like wildfire. "What happened to Esther?" one villager asked. "She must have been cursed," another muttered. In the midst of the chaos, Gloria stood in silence, her heart pounding with fear. She knew the powder had been meant to make Esther sleep, but now something far worse had happened. Her mind raced with the consequences. Had it been the powder that had killed Esther? Or had something else gone terribly wrong? Meanwhile, Abigail's mother, heartbroken and desperate, had traveled deep into the forest to find the powerful native doctor, who was known to possess ancient and mysterious knowledge. The journey had taken hours, but she was determined to find answers. When she finally arrived at the doctor's shrine, he was waiting for her. His ancient face was partially illuminated by the flickering firelight. He threw some cowrie shells onto the ground, murmured incantations, and then looked up at her with piercing eyes. "You seek answers, but you must be prepared for the truth," the native doctor said, his voice grave. Abigail's mother nodded anxiously. "Please, tell me where my daughter is. What has happened to her?" The doctor gestured to the fire. "Look into the flames, and you will see." Abigail's mother leaned forward, staring into the fire. At first, she saw nothing, but soon, images began to form. She saw Abigail walking happily with Gloria and Esther. She saw them leading her to the forbidden river. Then, she saw Gloria's cruel act, pushing Abigail into the water. In the fire, Abigail's body disappeared, replaced by a golden fish swimming in the depths of the river. Abigail's mother gasped in horror. "No. Gloria. I knew it. She pushed my daughter into the river. She did this to my child." The doctor nodded grimly. "Yes. But the river goddess has not yet fully accepted her. There are 5 days left before she is fully transformed. If you act quickly, you can save her." Abigail's mother's heart raced. "What must I do?" The native doctor handed her a small pouch filled with powder. "At midnight, go to the river and sprinkle this into the water. Your daughter will return to her human form." Abigail's mother grasped the pouch tightly, tears streaming down her face. "And if I fail?" "Do not fail," the doctor replied solemnly. "The consequences will be irreversible. The river goddess is merciless." With the doctor's words ringing in her ears, Abigail's mother began her long journey back to the village, determined to save her daughter, no matter the cost. In a remote village, a young woman named Abigail vanished without a trace, leaving no sign of where she had gone. The village was in turmoil, and whispers of dark forces spread like wildfire. The native doctor, a wise and powerful man, dusted his hands off after completing a sacred ritual. "Now, it's time to repair what has been broken," he said, determined to set things right. He hurried to Abigail's mother, who was found in a state of despair, lying on the floor, trapped in an overwhelming darkness. The native doctor placed his hand gently on her forehead and commanded, "Rise, my daughter." As his words filled the room, a gust of wind swept through, and the woman gasped as her senses returned. Her sight, hearing, and voice came back all at once, and she blinked, overcome with joy. "I can see. I can hear," she exclaimed, tears flowing down her cheeks. The native doctor gave a solemn nod. "The gods have restored you. Take this powder, and hurry to the river. Your daughter's fate is still uncertain." With renewed hope, Abigail's mother quickly wrapped herself in a cloth and rushed out of her house. Her heart pounded as she ran towards the forbidden river. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm, golden glow over the water. She knelt by the riverbank, unwrapping the powder the doctor had given her. With a prayer to the gods of the river, she poured the powder into the water. At first, nothing happened. The river remained eerily still. But then, the water began to bubble and shimmer with a golden light, and the air became heavy with magic. From the depths, a figure began to rise. Slowly, gracefully, Abigail emerged, her golden fish scales fading away as she transformed back into her human form. Their eyes met, and tears flooded down Abigail's face. "Mother, I thought I would never see you again," she sobbed, running into her mother's arms. "You are free, my child. You are no longer bound by the curse," her mother whispered, holding her close. The wind rustled through the trees as if the gods themselves were rejoicing. But while mother and daughter were reunited, in the village, the source of all this suffering, Gloria, had no idea that her time was up. Meanwhile, the native doctor stormed into Gloria's compound, his eyes burning with fury. It was time for justice. He had seen the harm she had caused, the destruction of Abigail's life, and the evil forces she had unleashed upon the village. Gloria, seated outside, chewed on sugar cane when she saw him approach. She rolled her eyes and stood up. "What do you want, old man?" she sneered. The native doctor raised his staff, pointing it toward her. "You wicked girl. You destroyed an innocent life. You betrayed a friend who trusted you, and with your lies and dark magic, you brought suffering to her family. Now you will pay for your actions." Gloria scoffed, her voice dripping with contempt. "You think you can do anything to me? I have a powerful spiritual mother backing me. You are nothing compared to her." The native doctor shook his head with a dark chuckle. "Your spiritual mother is no more. She has been defeated, and now, you stand alone." Gloria's mocking laughter stopped abruptly, and her face drained of color. What do you mean?" she stammered, her voice faltering. The native doctor's voice boomed like thunder. "Your reign of evil ends now." Before Gloria could respond, he struck his staff on the ground, shouting, "Let madness consume you for the wicked deeds you have done." A powerful wind whipped around her, lifting dust and leaves into the air. Gloria screamed, clutching her head in agony. Then, she began to laugh and cry simultaneously, spinning wildly in circles, her hair tangled in her hands. The villagers who had gathered watched in stunned silence. "She's gone mad," someone whispered in shock. Gloria tore off her wrapper and ran through the village, laughing uncontrollably, speaking nonsense. She suddenly turned toward the palace, driven by some unseen force, and made her way straight toward the gates. The palace guards rushed to stop her, but Prince Obi, hearing the commotion, ordered them to let her approach. Gloria fell to her knees before him, eyes wide with madness. "My prince, I did it all," she wailed, laughing and crying. "I pushed Abigail into the river, I lied about her, I stole the powder from her mother, I cursed her mother with blindness and deafness. I wanted to be your wife, but look at me now, the gods have cursed me." The elders and guards stood in stunned silence as Gloria confessed. Prince Obi's face hardened with fury. "So, it was you who caused all this suffering?" he demanded. Gloria nodded, her hair disheveled, her voice breaking. "Yes, my prince, it was me." She suddenly let out a wild, insane laugh and ran from the palace. "Catch her," the prince commanded. But before the guards could reach her, Gloria ran out into the village road, screaming. A speeding motorcycle, ridden by a drunk man, was coming fast. The villagers screamed for her to stop, but it was too late. The motorcycle struck her with full force, sending her body flying through the air. She crashed to the ground and lay still. She was dead. The villagers gathered around, some shaking their heads. "Her wickedness has caught up with her," one woman murmured. She thought she could escape judgment. And so, the tragic story of Gloria, the jealous and malicious friend, came to a devastating end. A week later, the village came together in the grandest celebration they had ever seen. Music played, dancers danced, and everyone wore their finest clothes. It was a day of joy. Prince Obi stood proudly at the front of the palace, dressed in royal robes, his face shining with happiness. By his side stood Abigail, more beautiful than ever in her royal attire. She was no longer just a village girl, she was a princess, and soon, she would be queen. The wedding ceremony was magnificent. The elders blessed their union, and the villagers cheered as the prince placed a royal necklace around Abigail's neck, sealing their marriage. As the couple sat on the royal throne, Prince Obi held Abigail's hand and whispered, "I told you I would never marry anyone else. You were always meant to be mine." Abigail smiled, her eyes filled with love. "And I am grateful that fate brought us back together." The native doctor, honored for his wisdom and bravery, received gifts of gold, land, and the highest respect in the kingdom from Prince Obi. For his role in saving Abigail's life and revealing the truth, he was celebrated as a hero. The village rejoiced, feasting and dancing well into the night. And so, Abigail and Prince Obi ruled with kindness, wisdom, and love. Their love story became the most legendary tale in the kingdom, a story of betrayal, loss, and redemption. They lived happily ever after.